Hi there, this is Dr. Moyer, and this is the narrated PowerPoint on children in poverty for FCS 4840. We first need to talk about how many children live in poverty before we can talk about how it affects them. Currently, 1 in 5 children live below the poverty line, and as you already know, we discussed how the poverty line is measured, and that's not very much income. And if you look at low-income families who live at 200% of the poverty line or less, then you're talking about 1 in 2 children. So the problem is pretty serious, and it affects a lot of children, and that's a really big shame. So what? So why should you care? Well, child poverty costs the United States $500 billion a year in lost productivity in the labor force, healthcare costs, and the criminal justice system. So think about that. Think about that statement and what that entails. Costs $500 billion a year in lost productivity in the labor force. Well, you're talking about a lot of children that are living in single parent homes and some that are living in two parent homes and working at jobs that don't provide great benefits, including sick pay. So if the child becomes sick, which is likely because the child and the family don't have access to good or high quality health care, then a parent is going to have to miss work to take care of them because schools and daycares will send children home when they're sick. They don't want it to spread, and they're not in a position to take care of a sick child. So you're talking about parents having to take care of children and working for jobs that don't pay a lot of money and don't give a lot of time off in the first place, let alone sick pay. And so parents are often missing work due to this. And when children are sick, they're not usually sick for just one day, so that creates even more problems. Healthcare costs. Although every single child in the United States, every legal citizen, I should say, should theoretically have access to healthcare, we're talking about Medicaid, and Medicaid is not it's not the best quality care that one could buy, and it doesn't cover a lot of preventive measures. And even if the child has access to health care, the parents often don't, so the adults are left out. So that means, trying to keep somebody sick in your house, from getting sick inside your house, and they have health care, but you don't, well, you're likely to get sick because you don't have access to health care. You can't get treated. Oftentimes, you just have to ride it out, and you're exposing a child who's already probably has a compromised immune system because of the low quality nutrition that they're having to live with, the stressful environment. Not when living in poverty, it's often a chaotic environment, and parents are very stressed. And so, healthcare costs. And then the criminal justice system. Parents, when they're raising children, will do a lot of different things to get money. And whether or not you agree with how this happens is not really the point. When people are desperate, they do desperate things. And research shows that when people live in areas of high poverty, which means that at least 40% of the population lives in poverty around you, or whoever we're talking about, then there's more likely to be crime. And so then you're putting, and not only that, so there's crime at the adult level, but then there's also children being raised in a high crime area, having to go to a low quality school because they can't afford a private school, can't afford to go somewhere else, being exposed to the chaos that is poverty, not having access to high quality, nutritious food on a regular basis, living with a parent or parents that are stressed all the time and don't have access to health care. I'm trying to paint a picture for you of just how this costs the United States so much. And the reason I'm trying to make this case is because it would actually be more inexpensive to provide preventative programs that help prevent issues from getting this far. And so how do we do that? Well, according to the National Center for Children in Poverty and other researchers, we need to create an environment where adults can be good workers and good parents. We expect parents to work. We live in a society where we expect all adults to work. And so if that's the case, then let's make it a good environment for them. Let's give them some work flexibility in hours and days. Let's give them some paid time off. Most definitely sick leave, not only for the parent, but also if their children are sick. Paid vacations, because people need time off and people need a break. It's not like if you have a paid vacation, you can afford to go to the Bahamas or to Italy or somewhere extravagant, but sometimes you just need some time off from work. Paid personal days, taking children to appointments, taking yourself to appointments, having to deal with things that come up. Sometimes you just need a personal day. And then paid maternity and paternity leave. Right now, 3 out of 4 low-wage workers do not have any paid sick days. And in many developed countries, similar to the United States in regards to how developed they are, the parents receive 6 months or up to a year, in some countries 2 years, paid maternity and paternity leave. So both the mother and the father are actually paid to stay home because the country understands that research shows children do better when they're able to spend time and bond with their parents. Here, you can use FMLA, which is the Family Medical Leave Act, and it does allow the mother and the father in cases too to take time off, but it's unpaid and it's limited. The most is 12 weeks. And so at best, you get 12 weeks off to try to bond with your child, but you don't have any money. Hopefully you have saved enough to cover the work and the bills and whatever else needs to be paid while you're off. Not a very realistic solution. And when it comes to childcare, we do not seem to place a high value on childcare, particularly for children that live in poverty. We know from research that children's earliest years have a profound effect on their life trajectory and ability to succeed. Those early years matter, and they matter a lot. Brain development, the most activity occurs between the ages of birth and 3. Yet the United States is one of the only industrialized countries that does not provide paid leave for mothers or fathers. So again, those early years are important, and there are things that parents can do to help build a child's protective factors so that they can handle things when they come up, if they're able to provide for their children, stay home, build a strong, secure attachment. Childcare is largely private in the United States. Individual parents and families are left to deal with a problem that faces nearly all working families. And getting access to reliable, safe, high-quality childcare is really difficult unless you're a family with some means. So we're talking about childcare that has educated childcare workers, a low teacher-to-student ratio, uses developmentally appropriate toys and activities, films, etc. This is really important. Childcare is a big deal. Yet, children living in poverty most often are cared for in the homes of relatives or in daycare settings where they are grouped with other children in a high teacher-to-student ratio. People are not educated, don't have a degree in family and consumer sciences or child development, and developmentally appropriate activities, toys, films, etc., not there. So again, I point to that first sentence on this PowerPoint. Children's earliest years have a profound effect on their life trajectory and ability to succeed. But if we can't provide children with high quality childcare, reliable, safe childcare, then how are we expected to do that? So just think about that. If we are able to do that, if we were able to do that, children had access to childcare that was provided by the government, and there were all these standards that every childcare facility had to meet, how much that would affect this issue, costing the United States so much money. That's what I mean by preventative programs. So prevent issues before they happen rather than trying to clean them up or take care of them after they happen. So what do? Families have to be able to succeed financially. They have to be able to care for and nurture their children so that the children can develop into healthy, productive adults. That's what we want. But we have to be able to provide an environment and policies so that we can do this for families as a country. Some of the things that experts and research suggest include these 5 points on the PowerPoint. Strengthening the bargaining power of U.S. workers so that they have bargaining power, they have a voice, and they have a collective unit bargaining for them in many cases. That allows them to work their strength in numbers, and they can negotiate for things that are important and will help them to succeed financially and care for their family. Expand tax policies like the Earned Income Tax Credit. Wonderful, wonderful policy, the Earned Income Tax Credit. I encourage you to look it up. It does allow a big credit for families that are working, but we need more things like that. Reward people when they're working. Reward adults when they're trying. And they're trying to raise their families and they're trying to work hard. Increase pay for low-wage jobs. So if you don't have a college education, and currently it's about half of high school students go on to college, about half of them end up graduating with a degree, a 4-year degree. And that means that's about a quarter of the adult population. So most people don't have a college degree, and that means they don't qualify for a lot of high-paying or good jobs. Well, if that's the case, we can't expect everybody to put themselves into extreme debt to get a college degree, because student loans are a problem too. I know theoretically we say, well, anyone can go to college. They just take out loans. Well, that's not really feasible for many people, particularly if they already have children. And it's not really financially smart either. So let's increase the pay for low-wage jobs that many adults have to work at. And require benefits. Require people the ability to work full-time instead of forcing them to work part-time so that they don't have to pay benefits. The employer doesn't have to pay benefits. That's one of the ways that big companies are getting around having to pay benefits. I'm not talking about little mom and pop stores and little businesses, small businesses. I'm talking about the big companies that use the ability to employ people only part-time, even though they want to work full-time so that they can save money. And then finally, help all adults get the training and education they need. So let's help them get the training and education before they leave high school. Let's teach them skills. Let's do what other countries do and focus on setting high school students up with some type of internship or some type of shadowing experience, some type of trainee situation where they can learn skills and get the experience that they need so they can land good paying jobs. So the takeaway message: severe or chronic poverty limits children's potential and hinders the nation's ability to compete in the global economy. Nurturing is just as critical as academics. I can't emphasize that enough. As an FCS professional, you need to understand that nurturing is just as critical as academics. And we need to create an environment where this is possible for working adults. Because solving the poverty problem is a big issue. And we talked the last time, the PowerPoint I shared with you, about why it's difficult to get out of poverty. Well, you have to take baby steps and do things that are actually manageable. And a lot of these things are manageable. Even letting people know that nurturing is just as critical as academics is a big deal. It doesn't do you any good if you are the smartest person in the world and have had all this training. If you grew up in a household without nurturing, you're going to have difficulties with close relationships, working with peers, working in a team environment, being a good, effective leader, even being a good employee. So that's my takeaway message. Sorry, it probably sounded like I was on a soapbox and getting angry, and I'm not getting angry, but I do want to emphasize just how important this message is. So when it comes to children in poverty, remember how many are living in poverty, how many are living in low-income households, and how important nurturing is. And then be able to explain what kinds of policies will actually help adults to be good workers and good parents. And that's all I have for you.